The story begins as Mi-jin, a 20-year-old trainee at the prosecutor's office, starts working at a new team for the first time. Her ambitious plans to build a successful career encounter an unexpected problem. Soon after starting work, she discovers that during the day her body mysteriously transforms into a woman in her 50s named Mi-jin. In the evening and at night she returns to her usual youthful state. This unusual phenomenon shocks her, and Mi-jin does her best to hide her metamorphosis from her co-workers. Mi-jin's first day at the prosecutor's office proves to be a tense one. She meets the prosecutor Gye Ji-woong, who immediately catches her eye with his charisma and seriousness. Gye Ji-woong is an experienced and talented professional, but he is withdrawn and cold in his dealings with others. Mi-jin, despite this, feels that a mutual sympathy can develop between them. However, her new lifestyle complicates any attempts to get close to someone, as she becomes a completely different person during the day. At the same time, Mi-jin notices strange events related to her transformation. She realizes that her transformation may be related to a mystical event that happened 20 years ago. However, she doesn't have time to think about it, as she needs to quickly get used to her job and prevent anyone from finding out about her condition. Her nighttime version tries to make friends with her co-workers and gain respect, while during the day she tries to be as inconspicuous as possible, playing the role of Mi-jin, unaware that her life is slowly becoming entangled. It soon becomes clear that Mi-jin also works for the prosecutor's office, and her involvement in the investigation becomes more and more obvious. No one suspects that Mi-jin and Mi-jin are the same person, and Mi-jin has to deal with her feelings, fears, and the dark secrets that surround her life. She manages to lead a double life thanks to her co-workers simply mistaking Mi-jin for one of the new employees without connecting her to the young Mi-jin. At the same time, Gye Ji-woong, who is becoming increasingly infatuated with the nighttime version of Mi-jin, begins to suspect that something is wrong with Mi-jin. Meanwhile, Mi-jin is faced with a new professional challenge, investigating a murder that involves events from 20 years ago. It becomes increasingly difficult for her to hide her dual existence, as she feels that her condition may be linked to this crime. Mi-jin decides to start her own investigation to find out why her life has changed in this way, and how it is connected to the past. She hopes to find answers and get her normal life back. Meanwhile, Gye Ji-woong begins to notice more and more inconsistencies in Mi-jin and Mi-jin's behavior. He suspects that there is some kind of connection between them, but he can't figure out what it is yet. He feels that he needs to solve this mystery, and his attention to Mi-jin and her nocturnal version begins to develop into more than just a professional interest. He intuitively senses that this girl is hiding something more, and it intrigues him. Her dual nature leads to a series of new challenges in both her professional and personal life. She realizes that her future depends on whether she can unravel the mystery of her condition and regain control of her life. But she realizes that she can't do it alone, so she decides that she has to trust Gye Ji-woong, despite the risks involved in revealing her secret. Mi-jin continues to adjust to her new routine, where she transforms into Mi-jin by day and becomes herself again at night. She already realizes that this change in her appearance could interfere with both her work and her personal life, but it's getting harder and harder to hide it. As she works at the prosecutor's office, she tries to maintain the illusion of a normal life, hiding her transformation from her co-workers and Gye Ji-woong, whom she is beginning to feel sympathy for. Gye Ji-woong, though stern and serious at first glance, gradually takes an interest in Mi-jin, without even realizing her strange double life. His nightly interactions with her become something special to him, and he begins to reach out to her. But his distrust of Mi-jin, her daytime version, grows. He notices oddities in her behavior and senses that she is hiding something. This makes him suspicious, which could soon lead to dangerous consequences for Mi-jin. Meanwhile, Mi-jin begins her own investigation, trying to figure out how her transformation might be connected to the past, especially to a long-ago crime that Mi-jin may have been involved in. She is confronted with new clues and suspicions. These events make her wonder if she can really trust herself in Mi-jin's body, as she may have done something terrible in the past. At work, Mi-jin attracts more and more attention. Her co-workers begin to notice her unusual actions, and some begin to suspect that she is leading a double life. This poses a threat to Mi-jin, as the slightest mistake could lead to her secret being exposed. Gye Ji-woong is also keeping an eye on Mi-jin's behavior, but has not yet connected her to Mi-jin. At the same time, on the personal front, feelings between Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong begin to develop. They are spending more time together, and he is increasingly interested in her. But Mi-jin is afraid that her secret will ruin any chance of a relationship, so she tries to keep her distance despite her own emotions. So this creates extra tension for her. She must hide not only her secret but also her feelings for him. Investigating a crime to which she suspects her mystical transformation is connected leads her to new shocking discoveries. She finds evidence that events from 20 years ago are directly related to her current condition, and realizes that without solving this old case, she cannot regain control of her life. Mi-jin continues her covert investigation, trying to figure out the nature of her mysterious transformation. She becomes more and more convinced that her transformation into Im-soon is somehow connected to the events of 20 years ago. She delves into old archives and articles in search of answers, gradually building connections between her current situation and an unsolved crime that took place many years before she was born. While working at the prosecutor's office, Mi-jin, while in Im-soon's body during the day, is forced to interact more and more with her coworkers. This is difficult for her, as she fears that some of her coworkers will become suspicious of her double life. She is especially worried about Gye Ji-woong, who begins to show suspicion. Despite his displeasure with Im-soon's strange behavior, he becomes increasingly infatuated with Mi-jin, even though he doesn't realize that both women are the same person. Mi-jin realizes that her secret may be revealed if Gye Ji-woong starts following her. At the same time, his attention and support become important to her, and she begins to wonder if she should tell him the truth about her situation. However, the fear that he won't accept her or think she's connected to a past crime keeps her from being frank. Meanwhile, work continues on a murder case that took place 20 years ago. Im-soon finds herself drawn into the investigation, making the situation even more difficult for Mi-jin. She finds it increasingly difficult to hide her emotions and inner conflict, as her version of Im-soon could be the key to solving the old case, but also jeopardize her present. As the story unfolds, Gye Ji-woong becomes more and more fascinated with the investigation. He begins to notice inconsistencies in Im-soon's behavior and connects it to the case they are working on. His suspicions grow and he decides to follow her. He sees that her behavior doesn't fit into the usual pattern, and this raises even more questions for him. He gets closer and closer to the truth, but he can't put all the pieces of the puzzle together yet. Mi-jin, for her part, realizes that she needs more time to figure out what's going on. She tries to determine what her mystical state has to do with a past crime. Her search leads her to an important clue. She finds an old photograph that shows a woman who looks remarkably like Im-soon present at the crime scene. So this discovery calls into question everything she knew before. Against this backdrop, Mi-jin begins to grow closer and closer to Gye Ji-woong. His concern and involvement makes her question whether it's worth it to continue hiding the truth, or whether it's better to open up and take the risk of trusting him. But she also realizes that if she tells him everything, their relationship could change forever. After discovering an old photograph showing a woman who looks remarkably like Im-soon, Mi-jin realizes that her transformation may be more deeply connected to a crime from 20 years ago than she could have imagined. This fact intensifies her quest to unravel the mystery of her condition and find answers to the questions that have plagued her since her strange transformations began. However, her double life becomes increasingly complicated, and Mi-jin realizes that the mystery cannot be hidden for long. Gye Ji-woong, following his suspicions, begins to follow Im-soon more and more. He tries to figure out how this mysterious woman can be connected to the murder case they are working on. He is troubled by the fact that there are elements in her behavior that seem to him too strange for the average person. His professional instincts tell him that this woman is hiding something, and he decides to delve deeper into her past. Meanwhile, Mi-jin decides that she needs to learn more about Im-soon and her connection to the crime. She dives into the archives and finds old documents that confirm that Im-soon was not just coincidentally connected to what happened, but was a direct witness to those events. Mi-jin is now certain that her transformations are mystical in nature and somehow depend on that long-ago crime. However, she still doesn't know how to fix it. Working at the prosecutor's office is becoming increasingly stressful for Mi-jin. She tries to stay calm and keep working on her current cases, but her thoughts keep returning to the mystery of her transformations. Every day as she transforms into Im-soon, she feels the control of her life slipping out of her hands. So this puts a tremendous emotional strain on her, and Mi-jin begins to feel fear that her true identity will be revealed before she can find a solution to her problem. Gye Ji-woong, meanwhile, is getting closer and closer to solving Im-soon's mystery. He finds clues that point to her connection to a crime from 20 years ago. However, before he can meet with Mi-jin to discuss his suspicions, she decides to take an important step. So Mi-jin realizes that hiding her condition is becoming increasingly difficult and decides to confide in Gye Ji-woong. But she is going to tell him the truth about her transformation and how it relates to the murder case. When Mi-jin meets Gye Ji-woong, she sees seriousness and suspicion in his eyes. But despite her fears, she decides to have a frank conversation. She reveals her secret to him about how she turns into him soon every morning and how it has to do with a mysterious incident in the past. Gye Ji-woong is shocked at first and can't believe what is happening, but then realizes that what he is facing is indeed a person entangled in mystical and tragic circumstances. After Mi-jin reveals her secret to Gye Ji-woong, their relationship goes to a new level. He no longer sees her as just a co-worker, but now he is fully involved in her mystical situation. Together, they try to find a way to break the chain of transformations and figure out how it's connected to a crime from 20 years ago. For Mi-jin, this move means trust but also relief. Now she is not alone in this struggle. However, they both realize that there are more challenges ahead. Gye Ji-woong, despite the shock of what he has learned, decides to support Mi-jin at all costs. He is determined to help her deal with the curse and regain control of her life. He begins to use his resources and connections to find more information about a long-standing crime that they are now certain is connected to her condition. He realizes that uncovering all the details of the case is their only chance to free Mi-jin from her transformation. And meanwhile, Mi-jin herself faces new challenges. Her transformations into Im soon become more frequent and unpredictable, and she begins to lose control of her actions in the older woman's body. This causes her to fear that she may soon remain in this state forever and lose her young identity. Her condition is reflected at work. She becomes increasingly vulnerable to her colleagues, who begin to notice her erratic behavior. Im soon, while under Mi-jin's control, also feels the change. She now realizes that her life is somehow intertwined with the events of the past, and begins to suspect that she herself may have once been involved in those events. This discovery comes as a heavy blow to her, as she cannot fully remember her past, and her present is intertwined with mysteries she cannot solve. She increasingly feels the pressure to find a solution as soon as possible. Against this backdrop, Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong begin their own investigation. They turn to archives and old documents, trying to find any clue that will help them understand how exactly her condition is connected to the long-ago crime. The deeper they dig, the more surprising and shocking facts surface. They discover that Im soon is not just a witness to those events, but may have played a more significant role in what happened. Gradually, their investigation leads them to mysterious individuals who turn out to have had an influence on the events of 20 years ago. They realize that there was a larger conspiracy behind it all, involving mystical practices used to achieve certain goals. It turns out that Im soon and her transformations are the result of a ritual performed by several members of this group, and now Mi-jin is forced to suffer the consequences of this ritual. The relationship between Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong continues to grow. Their working together and fighting against a common enemy brings them even closer together. They begin to feel that their bond is becoming not only professional but also personal. Gye Ji-woong begins to realize that his feelings for Mi-jin are deeper than he ever imagined. He sees her not only as a victim of circumstance, but also as a strong woman willing to fight for her life. So these emotions begin to be reflected in their interactions, though neither of them dares to talk openly about it yet. While investigating, Gye Ji-woong finds a man who witnessed those events 20 years ago and may know more than he is willing to admit. This person turns out to be an old friend of Im soon, who once worked at the same company where the crime took place. However, his testimony raises even more questions, and Mi-jin realizes that the deeper they delve into the past, the more dangerous the situation becomes. After Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong discover that Im soon was not just a witness, but one of the victims of a 20-year-old ritual, the situation takes a new and more dangerous turn. Mi-jin realizes that her transformation is not just the result of a mystical curse, but of a carefully planned conspiracy, and now she is faced with the task of not only unraveling the mystery of the past but also saving her future. Their investigation together gathers momentum as they get closer and closer to unraveling who is behind the ritual. Gye Ji-woong, realizing that the situation is beyond his professional duties, decides to help Mi-jin at any cost. His feelings for her grow stronger, and he can no longer hide how much he cares about her fate. Their relationship now takes on romantic undertones, and both of them begin to realize that their connection goes beyond work. Mi-jin feels she can rely on Gye Ji-woong, and this alliance helps her cope with her growing fear for her future. However, the investigation becomes increasingly complicated. As they uncover new facts, it turns out that many people who were involved in the ritual 20 years ago have disappeared or died under mysterious circumstances. Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong begin to realize that their adversaries are more powerful and influential than they may have realized. This raises new fears for Mi-jin's safety, for it seems they are being watched. Meanwhile, Mi-jin's condition is deteriorating. Her transformations in Im soon become increasingly chaotic and unpredictable, and she begins to fear that she will lose control of herself completely. Her emotional and physical strain grows, and she relies more and more on the support of Gye Ji-woong, who stays with her even in her most difficult moments. But even he can't fully protect her from the mystical forces that are gradually taking over. During the investigation, Mi-jin finds a key clue, an old book that describes the very ritual that was performed 20 years ago. The book mentions a way to stop the transformation, but it requires the participation of everyone involved in the ritual, jeopardizing further investigation. Now Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong must find all the surviving participants of the ritual and get them to help break the curse. The situation becomes even more tense when Mi-jin encounters one of the people who performed the ritual. This man knows how to break the magical bond between her two selves, but demands a price for it. He warns her that even if she decides to destroy the curse, it could have unpredictable consequences that could completely change her life and even threaten her existence. After an encounter with one of the participants in a ritual from 20 years ago, Mi-jin realizes that she now has an extremely difficult choice to make. This man tells her that the ritual can be destroyed, but the consequences can be extremely unpredictable, up to and including threatening her life. This new twist forces Mi-jin into deep thought. She begins to weigh her chances, continue to fight for a normal life, or accept that her transformation is part and parcel of her existence. Gye Ji-woong, being by her side, realizes how serious her fears and doubts are. Their relationship continues to grow, and he realizes more and more that he is willing to do anything to help Mi-jin. He offers his full support no matter what decision she makes. An emotional closeness grows between them, but amidst the mystical events she is still afraid to trust him with her life completely. Their mutual feelings become more apparent, but every step along the way is full of complications. Meanwhile, Im soon, like Mi-jin herself, begins to feel more and more of the effects of the curse. Her existence is also threatened, for if the ritual is broken, she could disappear forever. But Im soon gradually remembers her involvement in the events of the past. Her fragmentary memories begin to form a coherent picture, and she realizes that throughout her life she has been involved with people who have used her for their own ends. This discovery not only strengthens her desire to help Mi-jin, but also causes her to fear for her destiny. Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong continue their investigation and find the last person involved in the ritual. The man turns out to be an influential figure with ties to secret organizations and magical practices, and his presence in the past played a key role in the events of 20 years ago. However, before they can meet him, he disappears. This complicates their task and forces them to find new ways to complete the investigation. At the same time, Mi-jin faces new challenges at work. Her colleagues are increasingly noticing her strange behavior, especially when she transforms into Im soon right at the workplace. This creates serious risks for her, as she can no longer hide her double life as easily as before. The curse intensifies, and she realizes that time is playing against her. Her transformations become more and more frequent, and it threatens to destroy not only her professional life, but also her personal relationship with Gye Ji-woong. Gye Ji-woong decides to take control of the situation. He turns to his connections to find a way to get to the last member of the ritual and get answers from him. Meanwhile, Mi-jin continues to struggle with her inner fears. Her condition is deeply disturbing. She is no longer sure if she can control herself long enough to find a solution. Together they find new clues in the archival records, and they manage to discover that a ritual was performed to bind human souls, using magic that has been around for centuries. This ritual was intended to create an eternal bond between humans and magic, but its effects have been devastating to those involved. Now it is up to them to find a way to break that bond without deadly consequences for Mi-jin and Im soon. The final conclusions Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong come to shock them. It turns out that in order to completely destroy the ritual and stop the transformations, they need to bring together all the key elements of the magical ritual, including the participation of all the surviving participants. However, by bringing everyone together, they risk activating magical powers that could spiral out of control. So this becomes a huge challenge for Mi-jin. She must make a decision that could either save her or destroy her. Im soon, feeling responsible for what has happened, decides to help Mi-jin in her final move. Her sacrifice could be the key to freeing herself from the curse. She realizes that her own existence no longer matters if it only harms young Mi-jin. Gye Ji-woong, realizing that the situation is becoming critical, begins to devise a plan on how to perform the last ritual without risking Mi-jin. On the eve of the crucial ritual that will break the magical bond and end Mi-jin's transformations, tensions rise. She realizes that her fate now hangs in the balance, and this step could be her last chance to return to normal life. Im soon, the older version of Mi-jin, is also willing to sacrifice herself for the future of her younger self. Their bond becomes even more strained when both realize they can't exist at the same time without endangering their lives. Gye Ji-woong, supporting Mi-jin, prepares a plan for the ritual and gathers all the remaining participants of the mysterious ritual from 20 years ago. He realizes that the danger is great and any wrong action could lead to disastrous consequences. However, his affection for Mi-jin and his determination help him continue despite the risks. Their relationship grows deeper and deeper, and they both realize that they are willing to fight to the end for each other. Mi-jin faces new challenges. Her transformations become increasingly uncontrollable. She begins to shift into the Im-soon state even at times when it happens unexpectedly. This causes her fear and despair as she realizes that she is losing control of her life. Now she needs to complete the ritual as soon as possible, or she risks staying in Im-soon's body forever. While preparing for the ritual, Gye Ji-woong finds another important clue, an old record that describes the complete ritual and its possible consequences. The document states that the magical bond can only be broken with the participation of all the participants in the ritual, but there is one caveat. If even one of them refuses to participate or makes a mistake, the consequences could be irreversible. Mi-jin and Gye Ji realize that they need to be extremely careful. Amidst these events, they find the last participant in the ritual, a powerful man who has been hiding all these years. This man turns out to be the key to unraveling the whole story. He explains that the original purpose of the ritual was to gain control over magical powers, but things went wrong and the curse began to spread to the participants. Mi-jin realizes that her fate is tied to this man more strongly than she thought. Im-soon, feeling guilty about what happened, decides that her sacrifice is necessary to save Mi-jin. She is willing to disappear forever if it will help the younger version get her life back. But Mi-jin herself isn't ready to take that step yet. She can't accept that someone has to sacrifice themselves to save her, even if it's her other self. When all the participants in the ritual come together to perform the ritual, the tension reaches a peak. Mi-jin begins to question whether she can endure the process, as the ritual requires not only physical strength but also psychological strength. Gye Ji-woong supports her, assuring her that he will be with her until the very end, no matter what happens. He is willing to do anything to protect her, even if it costs him his life. During the ritual, unforeseen events occur. One of the participants tries to sabotage the ritual, which causes the magical powers to get out of control. Mi-jin and Im-soon are faced with a choice: either complete the ritual and risk the disappearance of one of them, or stop everything and leave things as they are. The magic begins to crumble around them, and it forces them to act quickly. Mi-jin decides to complete the ritual, realizing that it's the only way to get her life back. Im-soon, despite the risks, helps her complete the process. In the final moments of the ritual, the magic reaches its peak, and Mi-jin feels the connection between her and Im-soon begin to fade. After completing the ritual, as the magical power begins to dissipate, Mi-jin slowly regains consciousness. She feels her body begin to return to normal and realizes that her double life may have come to an end. However, there is still uncertainty surrounding her as the outcome of the ritual was not completely clear. Gye Ji-woong, who is beside her, is alarmed and closely observes her condition, but doesn't realize if the magical connection between her and Im-soon has been completely severed. When Mi-jin finally opens her eyes, she notices that her body hasn't changed. She remains young. This is the first sign that the ritual has worked, but they both realize that this may be a temporary effect until it becomes clear whether the curse has been broken completely. On top of that, Im-soon doesn't manifest, which raises even more questions. Does this mean that the older version of Mi-jin is gone forever? Or is she still around somewhere, waiting to be found? Meanwhile, Gye Ji-woong begins to plan his next steps. He contacts the remaining participants of the ritual to confirm their condition and see if the magic has been stopped completely. The participants who were gathered for the ritual are also experiencing the effects of the ritual, some of them reporting strange phenomena in their lives, which makes Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong wonder if perhaps the magic power has not completely dissolved and there is a chance that it will return. Nevertheless, Mi-jin's life gradually becomes relatively calm. She is beginning to return to her normal routine, though she is still troubled by residual doubts. Her relationship with Gye Ji-woong continues to grow, and their bond is now deeper than before. He supports her not only as a work partner, but also as someone she can build a future with. They begin to think about what their life together will be like after all the trials they have been through. However, soon Mi-jin begins to notice strange signals. There are phenomena in her surroundings that remind her of her past, sudden shadows, echoes of Im-soon's voice that appear suddenly and disappear just as quickly. She realizes that getting rid of the past completely won't be easy. Her fears begin to return, and she doubts again whether the curse has been completely broken. Gye Ji-woong, seeing that Mi-jin is starting to worry about her fears again, decides to support her to the end. He suggests that they continue to investigate the magical power together to make sure there are no more threats left. Together, they begin to gather information about what is happening to the rest of the ritual participants and their surroundings. However, they now face a new challenge. The magical power may continue its effects, even though Mi-jin can no longer feel it so clearly. Soon, Mi-jin is faced with another surprise. One of the participants in the ritual, who was thought to be dead, reappears in her life. This man, who was also affected by magic, reveals that his own life was saved by the ritual, but he is now connected to what happened, and that connection may be unbreakable. Mi-jin realizes that the ritual has not only affected her and him soon, but also the other participants, which now creates new threats. After meeting a ritual participant who has returned to her life, Mi-jin realizes that the magic associated with the curse has not disappeared. Instead of freeing herself from her past, she faces new threats that may be even more dangerous than her previous transformation. This man tells her that the ritual performed 20 years ago was far more complicated than they thought, and now the magical power continues to affect the lives of everyone involved. Each of them is still connected to those events and has to face the consequences of their actions. Gye Ji-woong, seeing that Mi-jin is once again gripped by fears, decides to take control of the investigation. He begins searching for answers among old documents and archives, trying to find a way to finally destroy the magic. Now their task is not only to understand the nature of the ritual, but also to find a solution that will save not only Mi-jin, but also the others involved. They begin to realize that they may have to confront those who were the instigators of the ritual in order to finally be freed. As they work together, Mi-jin begins to notice changes in her surroundings. She no longer turns into Im soon, but her mental state is unstable. She feels the increasing pressure of magic that has seemingly disappeared but continues to influence her life and thoughts. This makes her realize that the ritual hasn't been completely destroyed, its energy has simply shifted and now affects her differently. Meanwhile, Gye Ji-woong finds signs that the people who were involved in the ritual are still connected. Some of them continue to experience strange symptoms similar to what Mi-jin experienced, but in different forms. These people are experiencing unexplained changes in their lives, which only confirms that the magic power hasn't left them completely. Gye Ji-woong and Mi-jin realize that in order to get rid of the curse, they will have to find everyone involved and join forces in a last-ditch effort to break it. As they begin to gather the remaining participants in the ritual, it becomes clear that not everyone is willing to help. Some of them are either afraid of tampering with the magic again, or simply don't believe it's possible to make a difference. This creates a new conflict. Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong are faced with the fact that their plan may not work if even one of the participants refuses to participate. On top of that, there is the threat from those who intentionally use magic for their own selfish purposes. As the situation becomes more dangerous, Mi-jin begins to think about the sacrifice she may have to make. She realizes that the magic is connected to her life energy, and to get rid of the curse completely, she may have to sacrifice something significant. So these thoughts frighten her, and she is no longer sure if she is ready to go all the way, especially knowing that she could lose everything she holds dear. So Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong decide to go in search of an ancient artifact that they believe is the key to breaking the magical power still affecting the ritual participants. As they get closer to unlocking it, their confidence grows, but with it comes increased tension. So the artifact they need to destroy turns out to be not just a symbol of magical power, but an object that is closely guarded by people willing to do anything to prevent its destruction. When Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong finally find the place where the artifact is kept, they are in for an unpleasant surprise. The artifact's guardians are people related to those who originally performed the ritual 20 years ago. They don't just protect the magical relic, but use it for their own selfish purposes in an attempt to increase their own power. Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong face a serious adversary who is willing to use magic to stop them. At this time, the magical power that has been affecting Mi-jin begins to manifest itself again. Her condition worsens and she begins to feel that her life is once again threatened. Every time they approach the artifact, she experiences severe bouts of weakness that become more frequent and painful. Gye Ji-woong sees Mi-jin suffering and realizes that there is less and less time left to break the curse. He has to protect her by fighting those who want to thwart their plans. When they finally reach the artifact, Mi-jin is faced with a choice: destroy it, risking losing her memories of the magic forever, or leave it as it is but continue to live under its influence. She realizes that destroying the artifact could result in the complete destruction of all magical connections, including her own memories of Mi-jin and the part of her life she spent in her body. Mi-jin realizes that she may have to forget everything that happened to her in order to get rid of the curse. Gye Ji-woong tries to convince Mi-jin that her life and future are more important than any memories. Henry reminds her that they've come a long way to find this artifact and that she deserves to live a life free of magical addiction and fears. Mi-jin agrees with him, but inside she continues to have doubts about whether she's willing to lose a part of herself to gain freedom. At that moment, the artifact keepers launch an attack in an attempt to stop them. Gye Ji-woong enters the fray, protecting Mi-jin, giving her time to make a final decision. Mi-jin, gathering all her strength, realizes that her only path to freedom is to destroy the artifact, no matter the consequences. She uses her last reserves of energy to destroy the magical relic, and for a moment, the magical power around them explodes, creating a powerful surge of energy. As the dust settles, Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong realize that the magic is finally gone. So the artifact is destroyed, and the bond between Mi-jin and Mi-jin is severed. But the price she paid was high. Mi-jin begins to realize that part of her memories have disappeared. Her past involving magic and all the transformations is now lost to her. Gye Ji-woong stays by Mi-jin's side, supporting her through this difficult moment. He understands how hard it is for her to realize that her life has changed forever, but along with that comes the realization that she is finally free. For the first time in a long time, Mi-jin can breathe freely, without fear of the magical forces that have held her captive for so long. So the two of them decide that it is now up to them to build a new life, free of the past and magic. After the artifact is destroyed, Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong return to their daily lives, but their reality will never be the same again. The magical connection is severed, and Mi-jin no longer experiences sudden transformations into Mi-jin, signifying the end of her agonizing double life. However, with the disappearance of magic and its effect on her life, Mi-jin faces the emptiness caused by the loss of some of her memories. Her past involving magical transformations and all that she has experienced is now hazy for her. There is a new beginning for Mi-jin, but she still feels a strange absence of the moments that previously shaped her life. She realizes that even though magic no longer threatens her existence, she still has to come to terms with the loss of her memories of the past. During this period, she tries to recreate the details of her journey and recover everything that was important to her. Her thoughts constantly return to the events that were pivotal in her life, and she feels that she has lost a part of her identity. Gye Ji-woong, realizing how much this all affects Mi-jin, stays by her side. He becomes her main support during this period of adjusting to her new state. Their relationship grows deeper, and both begin to make plans for a future together. Now that they are free from the magic and threats of the past, they decide that they will move forward, leaving all tragic events behind. Gye Ji-woong proposes to Mi-jin that they start a new chapter of their lives together, free of fears and tensions. However, despite her attempts to forget the past, Mi-jin still sometimes feels strange sensations, shadows of memories that pop up in her mind from time to time. But she begins to think that the magic may not have disappeared completely, but simply taken on a different form. These thoughts begin to bother her, and she shares them with Gye Ji-woong. He, in turn, supports her, but reminds her that the destruction of the artifact should have finally broken the curse. They begin to notice small oddities in their lives. Although Mi-jin no longer transforms into Mi-jin, she sometimes feels faint echoes of those events. It could be a sudden sense of déjà vu, brief flashes of memory, or strange dreams. It makes them wonder if magic has really left their lives forever. Gye Ji-woong begins to look for other ways to finally make sure that magic is no longer affecting Mi-jin, but despite his best efforts, there is still no complete answer to their questions. In the meantime, working at the prosecutor's office is once again becoming an important part of Mi-jin's life. Now that she is no longer bound by magical limitations, her professional opportunities begin to grow. Her colleagues notice that she has become more confident and focused on her work, but some still suspect that something important has happened in her life that she prefers to keep quiet about. Mi-jin begins to actively work on new cases and tries to immerse herself in her work to distract herself from thoughts of the past. Watching her progress, Gye Ji-woong realizes that they both need some time to recover and adjust to their new lives. He suggests spending time away from the city to refresh their relationship and help Mi-jin get rid of residual fears. They decide to go on a short trip together to put all the stressful events behind them and focus on the future. After receiving disturbing news from one of the participants in the ritual, Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong realize that their recent fears may be well-founded. The magical power they thought was destroyed may still exist, but it now operates in a less obvious way. This news forces them back to investigate, despite their best efforts to put the past behind them. They decide to meet with the man to find out what really happened and what events he had in mind. When they arrive at the meeting, they learn that this participant in the ritual is experiencing strange phenomena. He begins to have dreams in which past events appear, and notices physical changes reminiscent of what Mi-jin experienced during her transformations. This confirms their fears. Magical power, though suppressed, can be reactivated if something goes wrong. This causes Mi-jin to seriously question whether they have truly completed everything they needed to do to completely destroy the ritual. They start looking for other sources of information to find out how they can finally get rid of the magical power. Mi-jin finds old books and records that she had previously disregarded and realizes that there is another aspect of the ritual that they didn't know about. The books mention that the artifact they destroyed was only one of several elements of the magical system that supported the ritual. Now they realize that they will have to find other components to complete what they started. Meanwhile, Mi-jin begins to feel the pressure of having magic invade her life again. Although she no longer transforms into Im-soon, strange memories and vague feelings keep coming back. But she fears that if they don't deal with the remnants of the magic power, she might be trapped in the curse again. This causes her anxiety and she feels vulnerable again. Gye Ji-woong decides not to put things off and together with Mi-jin begins to search for the remaining elements of the ritual. They come to the conclusion that these elements may be in the possession of other participants in the ritual, who may not even realize that they are in possession of these artifacts. Encounters with them become increasingly dangerous as some of them have begun to use the magical power to their advantage, seeking more power and control over the lives of others. Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong face a serious adversary who decides to use magical powers for his own purposes. This man has long ago learned of the true nature of the ritual and intends to retain its magical influence for personal gain. He threatens them and warns them that if they try to interfere, the consequences will be disastrous. Despite this threat, Mi-jin decides to continue fighting for their freedom. They start acting together again, investigating every lead and piecing together the last elements of the ritual. This causes a new wave of conflict and dangerous situations, but Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong are determined to end things once and for all. They realize that if they don't destroy the remaining components of the magic system, magic could take over their lives again and lead to unpredictable consequences. After a dangerous encounter with an enemy who uses magic to achieve his goals, Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong realize that time is running out. So they now know for sure that a ritual completed 20 years ago has left behind not only an artifact, but several other elements that continue to support the magic system. So this discovery forces them to act quickly, for any delay could land them in even more trouble. So Mi-jin begins to gather all the information she can about the ritual. She realizes that destroying one artifact was only the first step, but now they need to find the rest of the elements to finally destroy the magical connection. Together with Gye Ji-woong, they begin an active investigation, delving into the archives and contacting people who may have been connected to the ritual. Each new clue only strengthens their confidence that a difficult and dangerous fight lies ahead. They continue to meet with those involved in the ritual, and each time they discover new traces of the magic that still lingers in their lives. These people face a variety of problems, from strange physical changes to unexpected events that they can't explain in any way. Mi-jin realizes that they are all connected by a common magical thread, and each of them holds a piece of the power that sustains the ritual. Soon they find the final artifact that should be the key to completing their mission. This artifact is guarded by the very man who used magic to achieve his goals. He reveals that he learned of the nature of the ritual long ago and intends to keep control of the magic in order to gain power over the lives of others. This creates a new and dangerous conflict, as this man is not willing to part with the artifact without a fight. Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong realize that they are facing a final battle for their freedom. They devise a plan to retrieve the artifact and destroy it, but it requires a huge effort. They realize that the enemy may use all their powers to stop them. Gye Ji-woong offers to enlist the rest of the ritual participants to overcome the latest threat together. During their last meeting with the ritual participants, they devise a joint plan to destroy the magic system. And each of them must sacrifice their part of the magical connection to get rid of its influence forever. Mi-jin realizes that this decision will be the final step towards freedom, but it also requires a great sacrifice. They gather to perform a ritual that should permanently destroy the magical bond. At that moment, the enemy tries to thwart them by using a magical trap that jeopardizes the entire operation. But Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong decide not to give up. Together with the rest of the ritual participants, they join forces to overcome all obstacles. With the last artifact destroyed, Mi-jin and Gye Ji-woong finally feel that the magical bond between them and the curse has been broken. The magic that has held them captive for so long is gone, and now they can begin a new chapter of their lives, free from mystical restraints. For Mi-jin, this is a moment of long-awaited release, and she feels like she can breathe fully for the first time in a long time. She realizes that their struggle is finally over, but the effects of those events will stay with her forever. Together with Gye Ji-woong, they begin to make plans for the future. Now that the magical threat has been removed, their relationship can progress without threats and secret fears. Mi-jin feels that she has found someone who has supported her throughout her ordeal and has become close to her, not only as a partner in the fight against magic, but also as someone she can trust. Ji-woong, on the other hand, feels that together with Mi-jin they were able to overcome all obstacles and deserve a happy future. However, despite her victory over magic, Mi-jin is still faced with memories of the past, especially the moments she experienced in Im-soon's body. Her memory remains partially hazy, and some details will never fully return to her. She begins to realize that the destruction of her magical power cost her not only the ability to return to normal life, but also a part of herself. This realization becomes a challenge for her, and she is forced to rethink who she is now without magic. Meanwhile, the other participants in the ritual are also trying to recover from everything that has happened. Each of them is experiencing the end of the magical bond in their own way, and Mi-jin continues to stay in contact with them. Some of them are relieved, others feel a sense of loss, but for all of them, this has become a new reality that they need to adjust to. Mi-jin decides to help those who have not been able to cope with the changes they have experienced, and together with Gye Ji-woong, they begin working to help others find their place in the world after the magical struggle. However, even after all the victories and liberation, Mi-jin can't get rid of thoughts of Im-soon. Her life in the body of an older woman has left a deep mark on her soul, and now she's faced with questions that don't have easy answers. Will she ever be able to completely let go of her past life? This question becomes an important one for her in her journey to self-determination and the restoration of inner harmony. Now that magic is finally out of Mi-jin's life, she and Gye Ji-woong begin a new chapter full of hope for a brighter future. Despite all the trials they've been through, their bond has grown even stronger, and their past hardships now seem distant and not so terrible. However, the memories of the magical bond that govern their lives still return periodically, reminding them of how much they have changed during this period. This influence of the past can't just disappear without a trace, and every time Mi-jin remembers her time in Im-soon's body, her heart sinks. Mi-jin, finally free from the transformations and mystical traps of the past, tries to regain her calm and wholeness. She works on regaining her strength and pays attention to her spiritual and emotional development. Rethinking everything that has happened to her, she realizes that life has always been full of difficulties, but now she feels ready for any challenge. The feeling of her own strength and independence gives her confidence. She realizes that her life now depends solely on herself, and this feeling gives her the strength to move forward. Together with Gye Ji-woong, they decide to leave everything related to magic and curses behind and focus on building a future. They both realize that everything they've been through has made them stronger, but now it's time for a life free of dangers and fears. Their relationship has strengthened and they are sure they are ready to create something beautiful together. Mi-jin begins to see Gye Ji-woong not only as her trusted partner, but as the person she wants to spend the rest of her life with. For both of them, this prospect seems natural and right. Meanwhile, Mi-jin returns to her job at the prosecutor's office, renewed vigor and confidence. Her co-workers notice her confidence and professional growth. Her ability to handle tense situations impresses her superiors, and she now becomes an even more respected member of the team. Her work helps her focus and get back to normal, though sometimes she still has to think about what her path would have been had magic not entered her destiny. So these thoughts keep popping up in her head, but now Mi-jin is able to accept them calmly, realizing that she is no longer a prisoner of the past. Gye Ji-woong continues to support Mi-jin in all her endeavors. Their plans for the future together become more and more concrete. They decide that now that all magical threats are behind them, they can build their lives without fear of unexpected twists of fate. Together, they make plans for a life where there will be no more secrets and magical dangers. Gye Ji-woong, who has always been by her side despite all the difficulties, now becomes her faithful partner not only in the fight against mystical forces, but also in everyday life. They realize that they have been through a lot and now deserve happiness. However, despite the calm that has finally come into her life, Mi-jin still sometimes feels shadows of her past. Although the magical bond is broken and her transformations into Im-soon are in the past, she can't completely let go of those memories. Mi-jin still thinks about how she lost a part of herself when she broke the magical bond. But she realizes that Soon was not only an older version of her, but also a kind of part of herself. So these thoughts lead her to think deeply about the nature of identity and what exactly she lost when magic disappeared from her life. Sometimes she thinks back to the moments spent in Soon's body and wonders what would have happened if she hadn't chosen to sever the magical connection. She reflects on the life she led in the older woman's body and realizes that the experience left an indelible mark on her soul. So these reflections are not without pain, but Mi-jin realizes that her main task now is to move forward without looking back. She is grateful for the support of Gye Ji-woong, who is always there for her, and for the fact that she has the opportunity to start her life anew despite all the hardships she has had to overcome. She looks back on everything that has happened and realizes that these hardships have only toughened her up. She is now confident that she is capable of overcoming any challenges that may come her way. Together with Gye Ji-woong, they decide that now it's time to enjoy a life that is no longer marred by magic and mysterious forces. They finally find their happiness, and life opens up for them with new perspectives and opportunities they could only dream of before.